cEDH Budget Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight I'm joined with my friend James, also known as Squirrelmob around the interwebs. Say hi, James.
Hello, everybody.
So how you doing? Good?
I'm doing well, having a grand old time.
Well, I kept you up late, so haven't
a
you
little
been
bit,
up since?
a little bit.
You've been up since what, like 6 this morning?
Yeah. But it's the
Okay.
weekend. It's all good.
It is Friday, and you do get to sleep in a little bit tomorrow. And I see you're jamming some caffeine.
Indeed.
So James was on the Nexus Super League team with me, and we were part of the Michigan Meme Dreams. And he had this really spicy brew that he played that I really liked, and I wanted to kind of feature it a little bit. And I talked him into helping me budgetize it for you guys. So without further ado, tonight's deck is a Heartless. I can't pronounce that right. How do you say?
Heartless Hidetsugu.
Hidetsugu. Okay. Alright, I know what he does, but I can never pronounce those Kimikawa creatures right.
He punches people in the face. That's what he does.
He does. He is a 4/3 for 5. So, I mean, besides the obvious of every time you tap them having everybody's life totals, what's the overall plan with this deck?
So the idea I had behind this deck was, aside from just rolling with the memes, as we did, this was built as a stacks deck that instead of pressuring how many spells somebody could play a turn with like rule of law effects, instead we pressured their life total with spells like Spell Shock, Pyrostatic Pillar, and Eidolon of the Great Revel. So these are all things that let a Storm player play out their cards. They let a player who's playing 3 or 4 spells a turn play out their cards, but every spell then costs them life. And in a field full of ad nauseum decks, that means that every spell they play is 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 fewer cards off a resolved ad nause.
Right. Yeah, that it puts a finite limit on the amount of spells that they can play in a turn, if not interacted with. Kind of like with one of my favorite decks is Rurik Thar. Kind of the same principle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of the same thing except without the green.
Yeah. So how does this deck, besides just tapping Heartless manually enough times to make the game a draw, how do we close out the game with this deck?
So the idea here to close out the game is actually a little, not necessarily deceptive, but probably not terribly surprising. There's 2 main paths to victory that don't involve the general at all. In fact, I kind of consider Hidetsugu another piece of stacks. The win cons are primarily Godo and Helm of the Host, and there's a what's the card called? Dualcaster Mage Twin Flame combo.
And then
so the idea behind both of those, right? With Godo, it's the namesake of the Godo deck. You play Godo, you search up Helm of the Host, you equip it, you attack over and over until everybody's dead.
Okay, seems good. And then with your Heartless lines, you've got some of the obvious stuff like Staff of Domination to kind of give you some extra untaps and gain life if you need to. You got 1,000-year elixir to kind of do the same thing. You got some go on.
Yeah. Also, one of the spicier inclusions here is Basilisk Collar, which has kind of 2 uses in the deck. It can both go on Hidetsugu to make it so that when you activate him, you gain life equal to the life that your opponent's lost, which usually is going to gain you a lot. But it also,
like 30 life.
Yeah, 20, 30, something like that. And there's also a Goblin Sharpshooter in the list. So Sharpshooter plus Collar, it gets Death Touch. It keeps all the other creatures off the board.
It just clears the board. Yeah, it's a nice little interaction. So outside of Godo and outside of the assembling of Twin Flame Dualcaster Mage, Are there any other like infinite combos that aren't blatantly obvious in the deck?
There aren't particularly any infinite combos, but there are some pretty clever interactions that work out pretty nicely.
Okay. And like what?
A lot of these deal with Possibility Storm. So with Possibility Storm, every spell your opponents play turns into 2 spells, basically. Mm-hmm. So if you pair that up with anything like Spell Shock or Pyrostatic Pillar, they're probably taking 4 or more damage a turn. Now, that might not seem like a lot on the surface, but for a deck like, Rog, Silas, Adnaz, they need to cast 5, 6, 7 spells in a turn. If each of those costs them 4 life, plus what they're paying for fetch lands, or often Adnaz or Appear into the Abyss, that really limits their lives.
The Punisher in here. I'm surprised you didn't throw in Anka Mishra while you were at it.
Well, that was something I considered. The idea behind Zozu was basically to also have a body on it, because one of the weaknesses here is that if an opponent establishes a board presence, you need some blockers, right? Unfortunately, a lot of the red creatures that are good red creatures in cEDH aren't big. And so you want to have some guys to kind of get in the way, because if you're using Heartless, your life total is going to go low too.
Yeah. Sweet. I like this. Yeah, this was such a fun deck to watch play. I will link the game from the Super League that it got featured in. I know you didn't win, but man, you were so close.
I mean, as much as it hurt not to win, I do think it was the deck that influenced the game the most.
I was going to say, it was one of those, like, even though you didn't get the W, you definitely won. You know what I mean?
And had the 4th deck been something else, like, it happened to be a Brawl and Shipraz deck, so that it happened to have natural life gain and a beater in the command zone.
Yeah.
Had it not had those things, I think we would have been smooth. Like, if it had been another Adnaz deck, we would have been fine.
Yeah, you would have been all good. Yeah, you would have been great. So, all right. Well, now we've got the basics of the budgetless version out of the way. Let me flip over to the budgeted version. So, once I was done stripping out all of the because most of the high end stuff is really the ramp and the lands. Like, there were some lands that were really expensive. I mean, basically what I took out was like Mox Opal, Mox Diamond, Vault, Crypt, Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond, Jewel Lotus, Grim Monolith, and Chromox, Stranglehold, Ancient Tomb, Cavern of Souls, Gemstone Caverns, Wheel of Fortune, because it's, even though it doesn't show up in a price, it's actually like $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's at like 300 right now.
Yeah. A sad casualty of the reserve list. It's such a great card.
And then like Metalworkers at like 150.
Exactly.
So we've got, in its current state, we have about six cards that we need to fill in to round the list out. But we've actually got about $170 to do that with. So like we could add some good stuff in.
We could. And there's a couple cards actually that I would consider cutting in addition to what we've already cut.
Perfect. Well, and that's why I brought you on, because you are actually the expert on this list. I can help kind of tune it, because I did help you work on it a little bit for the Super League, but I definitely don't know it intimately. Yeah.
So the 2 cards I would cut before adding anything else in would be Underworld Breach and Staff of Domination.
So you want to cut the Breach.
Because the Breach really works well with Lion's Eye Diamond. It really works well with Wheel of Fortune. Those 2 cards together cost more than some people pay in rent per month. So
and more than the deck is going to be at.
Yeah, exactly. So, and without those, like, don't get me wrong, Underworld Breach is a great card.
It is.
Does a lot, but there's just not as much fuel for it, because we're not running fetch lands. We're not running, we've got 1 wheel in Wheel of Misfortune. Right. The other wheels aren't really good without Wheel of Fortune.
Yep.
And so it's just not enough.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I mean, And a mono red deck isn't going to play Breach for a value Breach. And even if it does, it's really only going to get like 1 or 2 cards out of it at most. Because, I mean, how often are you going to have more than like Threshold in your graveyard at any given time, basically?
Right.
If you have if you have enough cards in your graveyard to cast 2 spells with a Breach, like, naturally, you've probably already lost. To be honest.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, before we get to your considerations, there are a couple things to keep in mind. So, like, these $500 decks generally are designed to be, like, quote-unquote cEDH starter decks. Kind of more for people whose either playgroups are powering up, or they're, like, they're trying to get into it. Like, some guys at the LGS are playing, like, really high power. So, I kind of got the $500 mark after talking to Lab Maniac Dan a couple years back, and off of a blurb that I've heard repeatedly over the years from the Command Zone, where like the higher end of like casual decks, like budget wise, is around $500. So if you make your deck even at like a tuned high power, mid power deck at $500 can be played against this because they're on about the same level. This plan's probably a little more focused, but it'll struggle just as much. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And some of the decisions that go into this deck are very meta-specific in terms of fighting against a cEDH meta. So even if you're playing against like those high-range, mid-power to high-power budget lists, this might not be the best deck to take into those either, because if they're not maximizing how many spells they play per turn,
right,
you never know.
Yeah.
But there are places... It's a deck that you've got to choose your spots with. That's really what this deck is.
Yeah, for sure. And well, with all of them, I just like to make sure I get that out of the way because
absolutely.
Because I mean, budget and cEDH are kind of a misnomer a little bit, just kind of by nature. But like, really, what it is it's like we're gonna put the red staples in. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, you're gonna have like a decent start for Godo at worst.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you swap the commander and 4 cards and you're in, basically. Okay. So we cut to 2. So now we need to add 8 cards. So what are some of the cards you thought we're thinking about adding in?
So one card that I considered, I even considered this in the original list, but ultimately decided against it. But I think in a budgeted list, it'd absolutely be appropriate. Is Goblin Matron. Goblin Matron does a lot of work. Dockside Extortionist, very good card. It's a Goblin. Goblin Sharpshooter, pretty good card for board control. Goblin. You also have Goblin Engineer and Goblin Welder. Both of those can be very good utility pieces. Matron does a lot of work here.
There's also there's Skirk Prospector in the list too.
Prospector, right? And Zozu. I mean, I'm not sure when you would search up Zozu, but like he's a goblin.
Well, so one of the lines I saw was to like help power out like let's say like you play Heartless and he gets answered. So like mid game you play the Matron, tutor up the Prospector, play the Prospector, and then now you essentially have a
ritual on your next turn.
On your next turn. Yeah. I mean, you have to set up for it, but like, that gives you your thing. Plus, if you have any other goblins in play, it also helps you find Dockside, which is a big thing to help this deck like power. Another goblin that could be considered is something like Goblin Cratermaker.
Cratermaker would be a pretty good choice here. They could definitely fit in with what's here.
Yeah. It's just like a good kills an X2, kills a
blows up an artifact. Yep.
Non-land colorless permanent. So, I mean, it can I mean, there's all kinds of things it can hit. So that's just something to think about. All right, so what was some of the other cards you were thinking?
Another couple cards that I was thinking was without having Breach ourselves and without having quite the same level of explosiveness with our mana ramp, a couple pieces we might want to consider are some lower to the ground hate pieces that kind of aren't as good as the ones we already have, but are in a similar vein. And so 3 of them that I would consider are Ash Zealot, which is a 2/2 for red that says whenever a player plays a spell from their graveyard, they take, I think it's 3 damage, but it might be 2 damage.
They take 3 whenever they play a spell from their graveyard.
Yep,
it's
take
good.
3.
It's good anti-breach hate.
Yep, it's a good anti-breach hate. It can occasionally tag some other stuff. There's not a ton of flashback around. Snapcaster's really fallen out of favor, but Breach is,
Yogs will.
Yeah, Breach, Yogs will. So it can be useful. And worst thing comes to worst, it's a 2/2 that is a fairly efficient body.
It has first strike, so it trades favorably with Timna.
Yep.
So that's not the worst.
Hull Breacher and Op Agent.
Yep. And Agila.
Mm-hmm.
Just to name some of the common ones,
Right.
So.
Yeah. And in the same vein, a similar card is Harsh Mentor, which is a 2/2 for 1 and a red that says whenever a player activates an ability of, I think it's a creature, artifact, or land that isn't a mana ability, they take 2.
Yep. So it gives you another layered incremental damage, which is good.
And
not that there's a ton of scepters, but it does hurt people from Thrasios activations.
Fetch lands. It pings off fetch lands. It pings off.
Yeah.
If somebody's on a Neoform deck and is using, say, a meal with Dockside, it puts a hard limit on how many times they can do that. It's one of those things that it's not probably going to win you a game, but it's going to put chip damage on.
Right. And this deck is, from what I noticed, a lot of this deck is just having as many redundant copies of that chip damage, so that way when you get Heartless online, you can just basically lock it, because you're essentially trying to lock everybody out of the game by not allowing them to cast spells, and then they have to play with what's on the board.
Right.
And unlike Thar, your incremental damage does hit creatures.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't just play under it necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
So that's something to think about.
Yep.
We do actually have quite a bit of budget left, that we could add in Chromox and Mana Vault if we wanted.
Yeah, I mean, if let's see what else we got, and if we've got some space at the end, I mean, those are pretty easy pieces if we've got the budget for them.
Okay, hold your thought. I gotta empty my bladder.
Do it.
I'm just gonna pause. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave it going and I'll chop it out.
Fair enough.
And 1, 2, 3. Okay, James, so what else do you think we should add in?
So the third piece of stacks that I think would be useful here, that actually almost made the cut in the original build, and ultimately didn't because of the presence of Underworld Breach, is Grafdigger's Cage. Grafdigger's Cage, I think, is pretty reasonably positioned right now, given that a lot of decks are on Breach strategies, and it also tags the Neoform type decks.
Yep, so the Evolution decks. Yeah, so it's really good against Breach, it's really good against Evolution, which are, at least in our meta, are really popular. And are relatively popular just in general, because Evolution is actually one of the better positioned decks right now, especially non-Storm. Surprisingly, it's the best non-Storm deck. Doesn't have black, but
Yeah. And there's some other random decks that it just tags too. Like Elsha decks have to answer it, basically.
Yeah.
Reanimator decks, there's not a ton of them, but Razakats is definitely still around. So
it's a thing.
Yeah.
I think we have enough budget if we wanted to put Stranglehold back in. We could.
Yeah, Stranglehold is a great card.
Drop it. I'll move it.
It's not like there's a ton of turns decks around, but stopping searching libraries is an incredibly powerful effect.
It is really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some turns decks, like Tatiova wins with turns.
Tygam does.
Tygam, not that anybody. I mean, who plays Tygam?
Well, I play Tygam, but
that was.
No, they're not like a huge chunk of what I'd expect to see, but like it's also.
But Elsha is
yeah, and you have Mystic Sanctuary like that with plus turns is just good. So yeah, Stranglehold is just one of those cards like it's not going to win you any games. But it can lose somebody the game because it puts so much pressure, especially on those 4-color and 5-color pile of good stuff where their entire mana base is predicated on fetch lands.
Right.
Like if you can land, early Stranglehold, it really puts a hurt on.
Yeah, it does. All right, so we've got 3 slots left before we really start bickering.
Yep.
So some of the stuff I took out. I don't think we can add in Metalworker, Wheel of Fortune, but we could put in Mox Diamond. We could put Lotus Petal back in. We could put in Mana Vault. We could put in Mox Opal. And we could put in Thorn of Amethyst.
So, of those, I think Mana Vault has the highest usefulness.
Okay, we could also put Ancient Tomb Caverner Souls in, too.
Tomb's not a bad choice, either. I think I like the Mana Vault here. Simply for a couple of reasons. Mana Vault turns on, so if you have a turn 1 Mana Vault, you can also have a turn 1 Trinisphere, which is a big game. It also makes it easier to get to a couple of the more expensive spells. So we've got Stranglehold back there. It turns on a turn 2 Stranglehold.
It does.
It can turn on a turn 2 Possibility Storm, or a turn 2 Hidetsugu. All of those are pretty good things to do.
So I think I'm going to cut the Prismatic Lens first. Because I don't think we need to filter very much.
Especially not with Metalworker gone.
Yeah, no. And then also, I think it's just the weakest out of the two CMC rocks that we have right now. Even though it does filter, but we have enough red where we shouldn't have a problem, I don't think.
I agree.
Okay. Do we want to think of Thorn or no?
So Thorn, I think... with the additions and subtractions, I think Thorn is pretty borderline.
Okay.
I think it was borderline to begin with in the deck, really. Yeah. But it's definitely worth consideration.
I probably would have added Sphere of Resistance first over Thorn. Because I don't know. I don't see it hurting us too bad. The other option is adding a redundant Twin Flame effect.
So that was actually going to be one of my suggestions, is Heat Shimmer.
Okay, Heat Shimmer.
Heat Shimmer, it not only is it the redundant Twin Flame effect to combo with Dualcaster Mage, but a lot of our creatures are not necessarily like here for their bodies, but have some sort of useful ability. Like Goblin Engineer is sort of a tutor.
It's a tinker. Entomb.
Yeah. Dockside is a ritual, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Even like using a Heat Shimmer on even a Hidetsugu, if you've got one in play, you can activate it, Heat Shimmer it, and you get a new one that has haste.
Right. Yeah, it's not the worst.
Yeah.
Or Matron can help you tutor up 2 goblins if you needed to.
Exactly.
Just kind of
using it on an Imperial Recruiter gets you, another body.
Yeah. I the only thing I really find difficult with this list as it is really you just don't have a good way to get Godo.
Yeah, I mean that's really one of the issues is that Godo, it works as a win con, but it's not like the win con.
Yeah,
I would say that Dualcaster Twin Flame is a little more consistent. We have a way to go get it.
Yeah,
we have some card draw.
Yeah. I was just throwing that out there just so people know.
Yeah.
It's more of a stacks deck that you're gonna draw into a win con eventually. But at least you have some amount of tutors for like Godo's nice because if you top deck a gamble, you can just gamble for him and.
Godo's also kind of nice because it dodges the pyrostatic pillar and eidolon effects. It costs 6. You go get your helm. If you've got enough mana, you can suit them up right away. Yep. If not, you cross your fingers and hold on to your cheeks and hope you get another turn.
Yeah, slap them. Clamp them tight. Yeah, I think maybe we should consider adding Ancient Tomb back in, actually.
I like Tomb a lot. I think it's a good land in this list.
I think... So, I added Crystal Vein, Dwarven Ruins, and... Oh, where's the other one? There's a third one. Did I not add it? I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. I thought I added the one where it comes into play tapped and has depletion counters, but I guess I didn't.
Oh, Sandstone Needle? That's the red one.
I thought I added it in.
Wouldn't be a bad include.
Yeah. It should be in there.
I'd just cut a mountain for it.
Do we want to cut a mountain? Okay, so you're happy with the rest of them then?
Yeah, I think the rest are good. Because they all have some sort of purpose, right? Inventor's Fair is a tutor if we need one. Handwear Battlements can give Hidetsugu haste later in the game. Command Beacon puts him back in your hand if you've cast him a couple times already.
Yeah, and then the other ones, because we're going to need as many iterations of fast mana as possible.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And then some of the interaction that we have, stack interaction we have Thunderclap, we have Tybalt's Trickery, we have Ricochet Trap, REB, REB Pyroblast,
Deflecting Swat.
We have Impact Resonance. We have Chaos Warp, a Braid, Lightning Bolt. Something to consider would actually just outright be playing Skred.
You know, Skred is a really good card, but admittedly, I don't love it as much as some other low mana removal spells here. So I would actually, before playing Skred, would consider Galvanic Blast.
I love it.
Simply because, Skred, we've got 18 or 19 snow-covered mountains, but real talk, we're going to have 1 or 2 of them maybe, whereas with Galvanic Blast, we might be able to turn on Metalcraft, and it can go to the dome.
Right, we can... Oh, you got a little greedy on your nose, huh? Gotcha! Yeah, you can whack them with that and then screw up their combat math a little bit.
Yeah,
no, that's a good call.
Realistically, that's the only reason Price of Progress is in here. Somebody gets a little low with their Nause, you hit them for maybe 6 life off of Price of Progress. They're probably not counting on that happening.
So we're at 448 right now. We are at 100 cards. Do we want to start thinking about adding in some of the higher ticket items? Are there some other swaps you want to make? What do you want to do?
Well,
if you hit refresh, you'll see the list where it's at.
Let me... Boop. There we go.
Yeah, let's just take a quick second.
Yep. So yeah, admittedly, I think that with what we've got, one of the changes that would probably be worth investigating is I don't know where Chrome Mox is at right now, but I think that would be a good include to kind of round this out. Okay.
So we'll add the Chrome Mox. I will cut... Should I cut Mind Stone? Worn Power Stone, Springleaf Drum.
I would cut the drum. I would cut the drum because we're not huge on... We've got some low mana creatures, but we've only got a couple 1-drops. That feels a little weak with the drum.
Yeah, I added it because we had 20 creatures and a lot of them are really just stacks pieces. But that's not a bad call. If we want to go a little bit over, we could put... So if we wanted to even it up to around 500, we've got enough left for a Lotus Petal, Or if we wanted to go about $20 over, we could do a Mox Opal.
I mean, let's keep it to that 500 limit.
Right.
If we want to do Lotus Petal, then I'm not sure what I would cut for one.
So I don't want to cut the Manifold Key because it combos really well with Worn Power Stone. It combos really well with Mana Vault.
It also works nicely with 1,000-Year Elixir to get a couple untaps.
Mm-hmm. That was the other reason why I put it in there. It also works if we flood out and then we pump a bunch of mana into Everflowing Chalice.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and originally I had put it in as also another way to untap the staff if we needed to for some odd reason.
Right.
Don't know why it's got the ability in, but I was like, oh, I should do that. Plus, it also can make a creature unblockable.
Yep. Which never hurts if you're putting them down to low life. Make your 4/3 unblockable and just punch them.
Well, you can also make other people's creatures unblockable too.
Also true.
Incentivize that frog player to attack somebody else.
Yeah, there you go.
So, okay, so we have to cut one card. I would probably say, to be honest, Mind Stone is probably the worst, in my opinion.
I think...
Unless you want to cut a land.
But I mean, we're at 31
32.
lands?
32 with the double face card.
Yeah.
I'm not a super duper fan of, like, I'm trying to think of...
See, the one thing I like about Mind Stone is that it can turn into a card.
It replaces itself.
Yeah.
We can cut Everflowing Chalice or Worn Power Stone. I just thought you might...
I might cut the Power Stone. That might be my choice.
It's your dude, it's your deck. You know how it plays better than anybody.
Yeah, I think I'd go with the Power Stone here. Just because we've got a lot of other plays at 3 mana. Like, if we've got 3 mana, we've probably got something better to do.
Okay. That's fine. It is out of there. Okay. So, again, we had talked about Goblin Crater Maker as a potential add-in. Is there any other add-ins you were wanting to think about?
So, one card I was considering is a second effect to provide lifelink in the form of the 1-drop equipment Shadow Spear.
Shadow Spear?
Yeah, it's from Theros Beyond Death. It's a 1-mana equipment, costs 2 to equip, gives the creature like +1/+1 and lifelink.
And permanents your opponent's control lose hexproof and indestructible.
Yeah, the activated ability probably doesn't matter.
So,
but I also don't know that it's necessary either.
It's also $9.
Yeah, that's expensive. Why is that card $9?
Because it gives you trample and life gain, and you can tutor it up with Trinket Mage. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think probably just the one with Basilisk Collar is fine.
All right, so I am gonna move that Shadow Spear to the maybe board, mainly because people might have that and not have the Basilisk Collar.
True.
Because the Basilisk Collar is older, so like one of the things I like to do when I'm helping people build decks is like flexible with that type of stuff. Like obviously you have to have Godo and Helm to do a Godo thing, and obviously you have to have Twin Flame and Dualcast Remains to do that. But like a lot of the other stuff, like if you don't have it until you're able, like I'd rather you just play with what you have. Like, don't go out and buy the spear. Don't waste $9 because that's your Lotus Petal or that's your, that's part of your. That's basically how much Magus of the Moon costs. Well, Magus of the Moon's 15, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
That's $2 less than a Lotus Petal. I'd rather you buy a Lotus Petal than a $9 piece of equipment. That's
right. But if somebody's got one hanging around in their standard collection, it's a perfect 1-for-1 swap with Collar if they don't have one.
Yeah. So you want to do
not quite as good as Collar because it doesn't give the death touch, but if you stick a lifelink ability on like an Eidolon of the Great Revel, like that's going to gain you a solid chunk of life over the course of the game.
and we're not talking about life gain just in the way of like using it as a win con. More so
Right. No.
life gain, so that way you're able to have a higher life total than your opponents with your Heartless activations.
Right. And it breaks parity on the Pyrostatic Pillar and Eidolon and Spell
Right.
Shock. Yet having that lifelink is the way that you turn the stacks from a symmetrical effect to an asymmetrical effect.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have a Basilisk Collar and that Spear, it might be worth just slotting them both in.
Yeah, because they can both be fetched by Godo. They can both be fetched by Goblin Engineer. So they have some use there.
You can tutor chain into it with, like, you can go Matron into Engineer into that, and then reanimate it. If you needed to, like, that's a line. It's not a great one, but it's a thing. You know?
You never know when these things come up.
You can get it back with Duretti's activation, like that kind of stuff. So, all right, you want to goldfish a couple of hands real quick, and then we'll call it good.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, I'm going to share my screen with you because you'll need that. Give me a second, because this is going to make my computer hate me. Nothing like running stream software, a video call, Google Chrome, Discord, and then sharing your screen all at the same time.
Yep. That sounds like what my computer hates when I'm trying to work.
Right? So let's playtest feature. Alright. So our opening hand is a Pyroblast, Dualcaster Mage, Goblin Matron, Twin Flame, or Heat Shimmer, a Basilisk Collar, an Everflowing Chalice, and a Gamble. That is not a keep.
Yeah, no lands, can't do it.
No, I wish. Alright. We have Roiling Vortex. We have Pyrostatic Pillar, a Snow-Covered Mountain, and a Braid, and Anger, 1,000-Year Elixir, and a Faithless Looting.
So, I personally would keep this hand. I know
Really?
that it's risky, but here's why I would keep it. The Faithless Looting, you get your one draw naturally, right? And we've got a reasonable number of lands and inexpensive mana abilities, right? So if we get a land or a Skirk Prospector or Lotus Petal, we have some chance of getting there. Plus, if we don't draw it off our natural draw, we're going to see 2 more cards off of the Faithless Looting. That's going to be our turn 1 play. Probably no matter what, that's going to be our turn 1 play.
Yeah, most likely.
And with that, we've got Anger in the hand. And being able to pitch Anger is really nice, especially because we're going to have a mountain in play, which is going to be able to give us haste. Now, that being said, I would only do this in a pod that I know is going to be fast. If I know my opponents are on ad nauseas, then I would do this because the Roiling Vortex and the Pyrostatic Pillar in hand are what you want in a pod like that. If I'm playing, say, a Blood Pod and a Tassiger and a single Adnaz deck, we ship.
I would keep this on a mall to 6 or 5. I would probably pitch this as my 7, but we'll play it out since you're the expert. So here's our draw for the turn. It was Mind Sparker. So we'll play land. We will cast our Looting. Draw 2. We hit a Gamble. And we hit a Swat. So now we have to pitch 2 cards. So one of them will be Anger, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And I would also pitch the Mind Sparker here. It's a redundant copy of something we've got 2 effects of in hand, basically.
And it's like a worse cop version of it, too.
And it's a worse version, and it costs 3.
Yeah. All right. So that was our turn 1.
Yep. 2. Now we see if the greed pays off.
Sort of. So we're okay. So we can cast Gamble here if we want. Because it doesn't, like, Gamble, we're not going to get punished on too hard. So Elixir. So, like, I would probably tutor up like a Soul Ring here. To be honest.
I think that would be reasonable.
So let's go Gamble. Soul Ring. Close that. And I think it has a feature. No.
Yeah, there should be a discard randomly from hand button or something.
Somewhere. Moxfield's got everything.
Yeah.
It's a nice... a card randomly. Got Elixir. Okay. So now we go to our turn 3. I should have just hit next turn, but... Okay, now we're good. Command Beacon, tap, Soul Ring.
Yep.
Do we just jam both of these right now, you think?
Well, we can only play one, right? So we only got the one red source?
No, we have 2 red sources. We have the Dwarven Ruins.
Oh, we have Dwarven Ruins, you're right. Sorry.
And a Snow Mountain. And then we have a Soul Ring. So we could jam them both.
Yeah, I would play both. Run them out.
Which one first?
So I would run out the Roiling Vortex first.
Okay.
It's more likely to resolve.
Okay.
And it makes it more likely that the Pyrostatic Pillar resolves. Because if they have free interaction, if they don't spend it on the Roiling Vortex,
right,
then they take
2.
5 if they want to counter the Pyrostatic Pillar.
Okay. And then also, if we had to, we have a Braid, and we also had SWAT, but we're going to burn our 3 mana on the, so we don't have access to SWAT, but we could have held 2 mana open and used the Braid. All right, let's go to next turn. So now we're on turn 4. So we top decked a Jessica's Will.
So we've got Soul Ring and 3 lands, correct?
Yep, and one of them is a fast mana land. We can sack it for 2 red.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think we just tap 5 here and play a Hidetsugu. We've got Anger in the yard, so we can hold him up 3. To activate. We've got SWAT in hand to protect. Now, granted, if we have to play SWAT, it does hurt us quite a bit. But it's probably, to protect Hidetsugu, going to end up being worth it.
Well, and, I mean, who cares, right? I mean, we're going to activate him, and then he's going to... Like, if we take 7, like, that's fine. Somebody else is taking 7 on top of it to answer him.
Exactly.
So, okay. So we activate... So we took 7. So we're at 33. We'll just say we haven't taken any other damage.
Yep.
And then that'll be halved.
Halved rounded down. So if we're at 33, we take 16. We go to 17.
All right. So we're at 17. Yeah, that goes quick.
Yes, it does.
Turn 5. So we top decked an Eidolon.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Basically, at that point, you jam the Eidolon, we take 2 off of it, and we hold up Hidetsugu as a way to really just punish somebody for playing spells at this point.
Oh, we only take... Wait a minute. We only take 5 off of the... We only take 2 off of the... We don't take anything off of casting Heartless. We don't take 7.
No, we take 7 if we do SWAT. Heartless doesn't hurt us at all, yeah.
Yeah, so we're actually higher than that, because we were at 40, so we're at 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we play SWAT for free, then we take 7.
Yeah. So now we're going to play Eidolon.
Yep.
Take 2. And
from here, I mean, it's pretty smooth sailing.
I'm just going to sack that, so that way we have the red for a Braid if we needed it.
Yeah, that seems good.
And then now nobody can just... Now we've essentially just... Anybody who's at 20 life or less is completely, essentially locked out of the game.
Yep. Can't play free spells. Can't really play much that's going to be cheap to play.
Yeah.
Hidetsugu's a decent body at this point, so...
Right.
And we've got the Braid back.
Yeah. All right, let's restart and let's try this again. So it's a slower deck, like just
it is.
But I mean, to be honest, in these LGS like kind of mixed power metas, like this is just kind of right on the key. So for our opener, we've got Impact Resonance, the Sharpshooter, Thrill of Possibility, Wheel of Misfortune, Great Furnace. We have Simian Spirit Guide, and we have Lightning Greaves. I don't like this hand.
That hand's bad.
Yeah, that hand's garbo.
Sometimes when you're playing cards that don't have a high level of internal quality, you wind up with some hands that are pretty questionable.
Right? So our second 7 is an Arcane Signet, Malthoranum, a Goblin Engineer, Sharpshooter again, a Mountain, Dampening Sphere, and a Snow-Covered Mountain. So I don't necessarily hate this hand. It's a little slow, but like against other $500 decks, I think we're fine till turn 3 most of the time, especially if we're on the play.
It is a little slow, but it gives us some options because that Goblin Engineer can go and get a number of different pieces.
Right.
Or we can also deploy an early Damping Sphere if it looks like that's going to be more effective. Right. So we have 3 legitimate options for what to do turn 2, which is probably not a bad place to be. Because we can develop our board with the Arcane Signet.
Right.
We can go get a piece with the Engineer, or we can slow the game down with the Damping Sphere.
So let's draw our first card for turn is Heat Shimmer. I'd probably play the Mountain first.
Yep.
We don't play anything out. Next turn. Got a Pyro. Oh, we got a Rite of Flame. Actually, that helps.
That's not bad, because now we can play 2 spells this turn, right?
Yep.
So we can go... I would go Rite of Flame into Arcane Signet.
Which I did, yep.
Yep. And then, personally, I would be very tempted in most situations to play out the Engineer here.
Really? Over the Dampening Sphere?
I would, yeah. And the reason I would do that is because going and getting that Basilisk Collar, even though we're not going to play the Sharpshooter right away necessarily, getting that Basilisk Collar gives us some flexibility with where we're going to go with this. Because let's say we're playing against some sort of elf tribal, right? Somebody's playing Momir.
Right.
That's going to be
Morrowind might be another one.
Right. Now, that being said,
deck.
If we're playing against a deck that is more spell-based, right, rather than permanent-based, maybe we go with the Damping Sphere instead.
Well, I was going to say, against an elf deck, like, Dampening Sphere doesn't do much. I mean, it slows their, like, because, I mean, by turn 3, if they're untapping with, like, 7 to 9 mana, and most of that's based off of creatures. So unless we have a way to lock out the creatures...
Right.
Because this only stops lands, and probably, most likely, there's not going to be a ton of Crittles running around.
Right.
Like, this is more of an anti-storm card.
This is really one of those things about stacks, too, that you have to have some idea of what the table is doing.
Right.
In order to deploy your cards at the right opportunities.
Yeah. No, totally. No, I agree. And some of the good possible pieces to consider would be the Thorn we had talked about, Sphere of Resistance if you happen to have one, even though it's expensive.
Yep.
Even Pithing Needle's not the worst.
No.
And
like that Engineer here can go get a few other things too. I mean, that Engineer can go get almost anything that's available to us.
Could be another one. Dropping a Chalice on 0 in with a mono red deck is backbreaking.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt us because we just play land go. But like the Storm decks, like they need to recycle their LEDs and their rituals and stuff. So
I mean, we can also go get Trinisphere at this point if we wanted to with that Goblin Engineer.
But we can't reanimate it. Oh, we can.
On our next turn, we can, yeah. Like, there's a lot we can do here.
Okay.
It gives us a lot of opportunities.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I'm sold. Engineer, 3-ball, go. Next turn. Got a chaos board.
Next turn, we can just turn the Damping Sphere into 3-ball. Like, we can play the Damping Sphere and then engineer it away.
Yep, just play the Dampening Sphere, and then when we're ready, we're just go 3-ball. I like to do that with Godo. Like, so I'll tinker up the 3-ball and throw it in the yard, and then when I'm ready to like go for it, I'll just I'll tap a rock for mana and then sack it to the Engineer and then put the 3-ball in play and then gotcha.
Yeah,
So it's kind of a
engineer
good
has a
thing.
lot of flexibility depending on
Yeah, it's
what we
really
need.
good.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think now we got a Karn. So I think we pretty much like we're at this point like we've either accelerated out a little bit or we've lost. I think we can probably move on to the next hand.
Yeah.
All right, let's do one more. We'll wrap this up after that. All right, so we've got a manifold key, mountain, welder, looting, cage, REB, and a mountain. It's not a lot of ramp, but it seems okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate turn one here laying out the looter and then or not the looter, I'm sorry, the welder, and then seeing what we draw and potentially
Right.
using the looting to set up a turn 3 or 4 doing
Right.
something with the welder to advance our board state.
Yeah, or just start like screwing up people's rocks or something. Yeah, something of
Right,
that
yeah.
nature. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do our turn one. So we got a mine stones, land, welder. Turn two. We got a Tybalt's trickery. Play land. Do we jam the mine stone here?
So I would play both Mind Stone and Key here.
Okay. Not the cage?
Maybe Cage actually.
Mine stone in the cage.
Let me reread Cage real quick.
Can't cast spells from graveyards.
Oh yeah. Creature cards can enter, but artifacts yeah.
Creature-
So I would actually play the Cage there.
Yeah, creatures can't enter from battle libraries or graveyards and can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. So it shuts off breach. I mean, I might have even just jammed this turn one if we were like in a heavy storm pod, to be honest.
I mean, it really depends on the pod, yeah. If we're looking at Heavy Storm or your opponent has like Thrasios Bruce in the command zone, like maybe then you're going to go turn one Cage.
Cage and make him answer it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we drew a lightning bolt. We don't really have a lot of action.
So one thing we can do here is we can use the looting to dig 2 cards deeper.
Let's do that. 1, 2. So we got a thrill of possibility, harsh mentor. So to be honest, I'm probably want to pitch this manifold key.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem to be doing a lot for us right now. In fact, now that we've been kind of playing with it, maybe we just need to make that a rock.
Yeah, it might be fine
Instead.
as fine as what was the one we cut? Prismatic Lens?
Yeah, put the prismatic lens back in.
Another possibility would be Jeweled Amulet, that little 0-drop build your own Mox one.
It's
right?
like $6 or something.
Is it really?
Yeah.
God, card prices make no sense.
All right, what's our second card that we're gonna pitch? I want to keep that. I think Thrill of Possibilities.
Yeah, I think Thrill we keep.
Let's pitch the Trickery. We have the
I agree with that,
and we have the Bolt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got plenty of interaction.
And then I think we play the Mentor here.
That seems solid.
And we just start staxing.
And Mentor's kind of nice because unlike a lot of the other red stacks pieces, like Pyrostatic Pillar and Eidolon, Mentor is not symmetrical. It only hits opponents.
Yep. That is true. All right, let's go to turn 4. Got a mountain. Boom, mountain. So do we play the Thrill of Possibility here?
Probably. I mean, going 2 cards deeper is nice.
Well, what are we pitching? The Pyroblast or the Red Blast or the Bolt?
Probably the Red Blast at this point, because like if they're holding interaction, yeah. I mean, they've probably used it on somebody else at this point.
All right. Yeah. If it's still in our hand, it's probably rotten. 1, 2. We got a Blast Zone and a Goblin Engineer. Play Blast Zone. Gets counter.
Now, Engineer here is cute because if we can play him, or when we play him, we can immediately use Welder to put whatever we get with Engineer straight into play.
That's true. And we can also kind of sandbag it too. So, like,
Indeed.
if somebody plays an ad nause or something, we can just welder in the 3-ball. So then we're like, oh, we have 3-ball and we have Grafdigger's Cage. Fucking Storm Deck. You know what I mean? All
exactly.
Right. I think that gives us our plan. So, all right. So, I'm going to go ahead and end the play testing. I think we kind of given it a feel. I'm going to make that last swap just so we don't forget about it. I like the manifold key, but I think like we need like there's just we don't not quite enough like.
And there's a few things like that where it's like in the original list I like the Staff of Domination a lot, but like without Metalworker around, it's dead weight.
It kind of seems meh.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just go ahead and put Mox Opal in that slot. I think it puts a. We're only at 480. What? Is that right? Yeah, we're only at $480 with the Mox Opal in.
All right. Seems good.
Yeah.
Deal.
I mean, yeah, so Lotus Petal, blah, blah, blah. I feel like we're missing something obvious now. Now I'm questioning myself. But nope. Nope, it's all there. All right. Well, James, thanks for coming out.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Entertaining me. Where can people find you?
So I am on most pieces of media as Squirrelmob. So if you're on Discord, I'm Squirrelmob in basically every server I'm in there, which is a lot of the cEDH organized ones. I'm also Squirrelmob on Reddit. The one place where I'm not Squirrelmob is on Twitter, where you can find me at Hoff Occultist, HOFF Occultist.
I know it always throws me off when I see. I'm like, who's this Hoff guy? And then I see your picture. I'm like,
I used to have the Squirrelmob tag, and I've got like Squirrelmob 2, and at some point I lost it and can't recover it, and I'm very sad about that.
Oh, that sucks. And anything you want to plug?
The thing that I do for the most part is the cEDH meta project. So what it is just a survey that players can fill out once they're done playing a game whenever they play one. They can fill out multiple at a time, so they can do, fill out one, submit it, fill out another one if they've played 4 or 5 games in the evening. And what I do is I take the results of those surveys and turn them into a little report that, I'm not going to say it's 100% accurate or anything like that, but it shows at least what's been submitted, so what people care to share.
It gives people a snapshot of some metas, some places.
Yeah. It's a lot like the staples list that we see, or even the deck database. These are all different ways of looking at the meta. This is just one other angle.
They're tools. And I will drop a link to that submission form in the description of this video when it gets posted.
Love
it. And thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah.
As always, if you guys would like to support us here at the Budget Brews, you can go to patreon.com, cEDH_budget_brews, and drop us a buck. There's some perks if you do. And you're already on YouTube if you're watching this, so if you enjoyed, please hit the thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Thank you. Have a good night. Bye.